All right, so we are live on Facebook right now. So everybody coming in, if you can like and share the video. Also, you can share it from my page as well, the Taylor House Publishing page. I'll share it now. Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 10 o'clock, and you're tuned in to the U-Turn Show here on Awesome Radio 106.9 WBISLP FM on your radio dial. Thank you all for tuning in once again. Make sure that you do go to the website, WBISAwesomeRadio.org, and download our apps, the Google app, Google Play, also on the Apple Store and Alexa for all Amazon users. And make sure to call in a live show 252-756-2008. And welcome to everyone who tunes in also on social media page. We're streaming this live from Facebook. Make sure you interact with the show, make comments. So we definitely love hearing the audience's feedback on our variety of topics. And as always, I do want to thank God for allowing me to be able to do this show, to highlight, special individuals who are, doing great things in our society, despite, obstacles and adversities. This definitely an inspirational show designed to motivate others and, highlight those who are doing great things. So I thank you all for tuning in. Once again, I'm not in the studio today. This is something different. I am actually in Kansas City. So we have the president of Awesome Radio, Mr. Keela Thigpen, back engineering this show. So I definitely want to thank her for filling in while I am away from the studio. This is my first episode doing this, but I also have a guest as well, who's actually a distance away. She's from New York. I want to introduce to everybody, Mr. Kyriek Daniels. How you doing, sir?
Hey, what's up? How you doing, man? How you doing?
All right, pretty good, man. It's glad to have you, man. Just a little brief introduction. Me and Kyriek actually connected on a call, which was Raising Our Voice. And that's actually a call put together by an organization who brings people who are dealing with family members who are incarcerated, because a lot of people don't know that, when someone is incarcerated, it not only affects that person, but it also affects their family members. So I was able to hear this brother's story, his testimony, and how, he has used some adverse circumstances to actually just become an advocate, become a pillar, become an inspiration to me, and I know a lot of others. So definitely, I want to just give him an opportunity to explain about his brand, the Injustice brand, which is a clothing line, and where did that brand originate from, Mr. Daniels?
All right, so how's everyone doing? My name is Kyriek Daniels. I'm 27-year-old father, devoted husband. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, a small section, called Brownsville. My father is currently incarcerated in a New York State prison right now on crimes that he didn't commit. He's been in prison since I was 12 years old. Today I stand as a grown man being 27 years old, and my father is still incarcerated. I'm still fighting for his innocence. I say the age of 23 is when I started everything. It was ups and downs in my life. I had my first child. I also found we also found the actual proof, that my father rights was broken when he had his alibis read twice to him. He gave his first alibi, it never showed up to trial. The coerced alibi showed up, and that's what convicted him. Also,
All
kind
right,
of
so let's start a little bit at the beginning, though.
okay, okay.
That's where the injustice brand came from. Now, people, you kind of glossed over that. So you said you were only 12 months when your father was convicted
Yeah,
of.
I was 12 months when my father was taken away. I was 1 years old.
So
So
actually, so you don't, of course, you don't remember him being there. But at what age did you, begin to connect with them, even throughout the prison, the prison walls or the prison letters or the prison calls?
I say, you know, I've been going up there since I was a kid. My grandmoms would take me, my mother would take me sometimes. Um, I'll say about once my mom and my dad got married. Once they got back married, I can say I was about maybe 11 years old. I still was a kid, so I didn't understand. I didn't understand it. We go on a visit, and then it's like, all right, I see you when I see you, but I just didn't get the whole aspect of it. I say maybe 16 when I started to go outside, and that's when I got the whole. Oh, my dad is like in prison. You know what I'm saying? And that's when I
Okay.
start to think about it. Yeah,
So a lot of my guests, we talk about, fathers not being present. But even in your situation, I guess he wasn't present, but he was present. But I always
yeah,
like to talk about, coming up as a child, being, raised by, I assume, like your mother. Yeah, you talk a lot about your grandmother as well. Um, so how was your childhood? Because you hear the horror stories of a bad childhood, mothers strung out and this and that, the other. But yours was somehow different, I assume, or I would believe.
yeah, yeah. My mom was never on drugs or nothing like that. But being raised in a small section in a community where there's not too much positive things going on. So at the end of the day, my mom was married, but she still was like a single parent because my dad wasn't home. So she had to work. She had to provide for us. I have a little brother that he has cerebral palsy that he can't walk or talk. So that's also a task. Growing up, he was there. I had some male presence, but it's still I still found myself in some wrong things, joining some things that I wasn't supposed to. And I think if he was there, I would never went that route. But that absence of, my mom can it was so much she can teach me, so much she can show me. I had to go outside, I had to go out and be a man on my own. So um the upbringing wasn't bad. It was just like, I just also think like maybe if I had my dad for certain things, I could have stirred the right way. I'm on the right path. I never been in prison. I never been cuffed. But I also think, I would have been a little bit farther if I had my dad there. So
Okay. And
yeah,
that's actually funny you say that because I think we talked about this before when I first heard your story. And I just commended you on being, a young father and a husband at such an early age. And you say you steered the wrong way a while, but I don't see that. You said you got married at 23, or
no,
you're
no, I just got married last year. Well, this year. I'm sorry, this year, April 11th. I just got married.
you're
Yeah,
27 years old. But see, where did you get that, man? You talked about the fatherhood, your father being not there, but there's many guys who had fathers or haven't had fathers that are not in the position where you are in now, where you're a devoted husband, you're a devoted father. You're working. You have at the age of 27, you're doing a lot of things. Even guys that my age haven't done yet. So where do you think that matriculation in the manhood that you're exhibiting now came from, without that guidance? Because you said you think you would be a lot farther, but actually I think you're a lot farther than a lot of my peers
yeah,
today.
yeah. So I'll say, you know, like I said, where I was raised, everything wasn't bad. So I had my uncle. He was also married. But there was this guy that I always would talk to. He was in the community. He knew me since a kid. But he was in certain things. But when I speak to him, he never would push me to those things. He will always give me like he was like a guardian angel to me.
Okay.
Um, he will always give me the real. He would tell me, one time, I was mad and I wanted certain things and my mom wouldn't buy it for me, and I went to him to go and get certain things, and he told me no. He
Okay.
stopped me, So
Good.
he was like he had his kid, and I always would see him with his kid. He never was, it never was him and just him by himself. He always had his son, and he raised his son, and he passed away due to natural life causes. He helped me a lot, but
Okay.
also I think by me just finding this way of being married at an early age. I got 5 friends that's gone, under the age 25, from senseless violence, and I think that kind of forced me to grow up quicker, because while everybody was doing one thing, I just decided to do something else, you know. And then my wife today, she was the one that kind of took me away from this stuff. I
Okay.
was in New York City, just taking me to 42nd Street, going to the movies, going to IHOP, stuff like that. Just kind of like it opened my eyes a lot, and that got me away from it much faster, and that's what helped me. She was like, I still struggle with being the man that that she may want me to be, or being a father that my kids need me to be, because I've had that void, but
Mhm.
I pretty much, without my mom's, I kind of just, finessed it on myself and just learned with my mistakes. And I always said a loss is just a lesson, so
Yeah.
it helped
Well,
me.
definitely, man. There's no handbook to it. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely just want to once again commend you for the place that you're at now, man. Because a lot of guys are not even there, not even trying to be there, and willing to be man enough to say, okay, yeah, I may struggle with certain things, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to take advice. I'm willing to take direction, man. So that's once again big in itself. So let's talk about when you first, started to realize, okay, wow, my father's in prison for a long time. Like you say, when you started to go outside and you start to see certain things. So how did that open your eyes to situation, and did that kind of make you research more and talk to your father more and get to the bottom of the things, or to give you a more understanding as a 16-year-old rather than that 1 year old or 10-year old that you mentioned?
Yeah, so I say even when I was 16, I never like asked, never really like, it was until I was like a full grown man, 23. My mom found this piece of paper, and that paper, kind of changed the trajectory. We found out, like, my dad is like truly innocent. He's sitting in prison for something he didn't do. Um, so I actually read some of this, the paperwork, and I seen it for my own eyes, seen it with my own 2 eyes. I'm no lawyer, I'm no nothing, but I seen certain things that was broken, certain laws that was broken. So that made me more curious. So I started to, research, and I started to find just the statistics on, people of our color, going in jail, going to prison, and these people being wrongfully convicted. These people sitting on death row, and these people are innocent, getting executed, then finding out they never committed the crime. And this is like actual facts. Like everyone can Google it, and it's proof. It's like right there in our face to show that, there's people sitting in prison that's innocent. So I say maybe, I always had the question of, like, why? And I asked my dad, and now he started to come out more, and he's explained, and he told me, certain things, and it opened my eyes more. And when I got to sit down as a grown man, to sat down with him man to man, face to face, with no mommy, no grandma, I knew my father wasn't that thing, that person that the state said that he was, So I knew personally the guy that he raised me to be, even though being in the prison, he still raised me with respect and told me to always listen and never think that I was too big to never listen to anyone, and he just always gave me positive. I could say like him being in that situation, it never turned him to do anything negative, to push me to do anything negative. He always, kept me and left me with a gym here and there. So that's what where I'm at now. So
So yeah, so being so you actually in constant communication with them now, and you actually told me something, the other day we was talking that during the 26 years that
yeah,
he's been incarcerated,
yes,
he has never been in solitary confinement, has
nope,
never been in trouble. Things
nope.
like, and also Bridget Daniels said you came a long way too. She said that in the comments. I don't know if you were able to see the comments.
That's my mom. That's
Okay, yeah, how you doing,
what I'm
mom?
saying right there, man.
Yeah, you definitely did a good job with this young man. I was definitely impressed, by him first time I meet him. So you definitely did some good work here. But yeah, so being that he's been in there for so long, how long does he have left?
Well, they sentenced him 32 years to life. He has 26, and so every time I turn a different age, he gets another year that he's in prison. So January he'll be coming up on 27 years. He'll be
Uh,
eligible for parole soon, but with the parole board, they want you to kind of, it's a tricky thing where they want you to, you know, um, say that you did the crime, and we don't want that. We want the glory, we want the truth to come out because 23-year-old kid life was changed for the rest of his life when he was lied on and he was ridiculed and sentenced to 32 years to life to prison. His life changed, his mother life changed, his grandmother, his kids, and it's sad, but I always just ask myself what was this for. And I went to see my dad 3 weeks ago, and it showed me like, maybe my dad is here to cause that division from maybe someone kid being hurt because there was a guy on a visiting floor, and he he told me a story about how he heard someone call him stupid, and he went to the guy and he told him, you know, don't I don't want to call you stupid. Don't I don't want to call you out your name. And that same guy went to go and strive for better. He went to go and get his GED, and when he passed, he kept on failing. He kept on failing, but he kept on going. And when he passed, he ran through the yard to find my father and showed him that he passed his GED. So I just think like certain things like that my dad is put in that place for a reason. He was the sacrifice to help that young brother that's right now in the community, hanging around and maybe want to get out, but maybe it may be too late and you get caught up in something. You get caught up in a crime that your friends did or someone did, and now you're sitting in prison for it. You get what I'm saying? So he
yeah,
can change. I feel like his story, can help millions of kids. Not get caught up in the system because that's the plan. You get in, it's easy to get in and it's hard to get out.
yeah.
So
You said he was 23 years old
yeah, he was
uh,
20.
when this happened, and that was 27 years ago. So we're talking about maybe 1990, if my
Five.
math's correct, 94, 1995, somewhere around there.
Yep,
So
yep.
he was 23. And so he hasn't been up for parole yet.
No, not yet.
Okay. So, but when he does come up parole, like you said, the parole board actually wants you to kind of admit guilt and show remorse before they let you out. And y'all want to, basically declare innocence because, and we'll get into that after the break because we got about 2 minutes to go. But if you feel comfortable talking about some of the inequity and inact the inaccuracies, excuse
Yeah.
me, or the inadequacies of the trial because people look at those cases on TV that you mentioned or those Google cases and think that just happened in the movies.
Mhm.
No, and don't realize that people are just actually railroaded like the Central Park Five.
Yep.
They have to get somebody for this crime. So that
Yep.
we're going to pick somebody, and you're going to be it. No matter who says what, no matter who says you didn't do it, you're going to be it. And being someone who myself was wrongfully accused of something, I know I experienced firsthand how someone can be in jail for a crime they didn't commit. So you're definitely a testament, to a real life situation that may not get the exposure if it wasn't for you. If it wasn't for your brand is basically Injustice brand, which calls to highlight the injustices of the prison system, all because your father was, wrongfully arrested for something that he didn't do. So on the break, if you feel comfortable talking about some of the inadequacies we talked about, and and just explain, how that, you're still working to bring those things to light, man. So Nunu Austin, that was actually a guest. True that she was one. She was actually arrested for the murder of her stepfather and was held in prison for a year. I think, I don't know if you saw that show, but she was held in prison for a year. They just absolutely let her out without no trial or nothing. They just said it's time for you to get out. Well, we got 15 minutes left to the break. We're going to be right back with Mr. Kyriek Daniels. You're watching the U-Turn show here on 106.9 FM. We're going to be right back, and we're going to be talking about more injustice with our special guest. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, man. So, yeah, without going too deep, whatever you want to talk about, as far as like the things that you found out, and to prove your brother's innocence, the witness or whatever. And the second segment is 10 minutes. So,
Okay.
we'll have 10 minutes, then we'll go to another break, and then the last segment is 20 minutes, and then so we can maybe talk about the brand, what you got going on, your own projection of what you want to accomplish with this. Hopefully, your father be getting out soon. What you looking forward to with that and everything like that. So
Okay.
yeah, or anything. I know you got notes you want to talk about. So if anything you want to dive off into, you can too.
Yeah. I'm gonna see. I'm seeing now.
Yeah, I see you looking at some
Yeah,
notes.
yeah. My mom, she wanted to make sure certain stuff I say, certain stuff I don't say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So
Yeah,
so
so I
go ahead.
had to just double check to see but I'm good now. Yeah.
Yeah, well, feel free to to go ahead and go ahead on your what I'm saying. If any information you definitely want, just be like, yo, let me say this. You know what I'm saying, and then so I know. Okay, well now you got to get this out. But yeah, let me know if I'm if I say anything. And of course, I'm trying basically not to say anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
To
All right.
to compromise anything y'all got going on with that. So yeah, here we go. About 10, 11 more seconds. Yes, and we're back. 106.9 FM, Awesome Radio, WBISLP. I am your host, Richard Taylor, the host of the U-Turn Show. Thank you once again for joining in. We're here with a special guest, Mr. Kyriek Daniels, the owner and founder of Injustice Brand, and we're talking about the case that led him to start this Injustice Brand. And Bridget Daniels said absolutely. I think that was what we was talking about earlier about people being wrongfully convicted and the way that they are wrongfully convicted. So we're gonna go. Will Smith. Will Smith. He says, my brother, 2.5 Bugatti, says 100, 100, 100, 100. Those some New York brothers I know. So, so definitely, man. If you because like we was talking about, a lot of people don't understand how these things can happen. Can you just give a couple of tidbits of how that your father was denied justice without going too deep into the legal the
Yeah.
legal job one.
So I'll just give some simple basics of what everybody. I'm pretty sure everybody watched the show Law and Order. I give you pretty basics of what simple stuff that just what went on in my dad's case. That simple would be like, wow, he should have been home. My dad, he had an alibi. His alibi checked out. The time of the crime, my father was helping his neighbor with groceries. Which was that's the person that he is. That's the person that is his mom raised him to be, the person that his grandmother raised him to be. So he gets interviewed by a detective. He gives his alibi. They tell him, you give him this alibi, you go home. He gave the alibi. They go to the neighbor. It checks out with her. Um, Same thing. She gives the same story. She comes up the elevator. Kevin is in the hallway. She's coming out with the bags. Kevin grabbed the bags. They hear the gunshots. They go inside. She tells him to go in the house. He goes in the house. She goes in the house. Down's two statements never showed up to trial. So one, if I give an alibi, if you watch Law and Order, if they have a suspect and that suspect gives an alibi and that alibi checks out with the person, that person is free. They can no longer accuse that person to be the suspect because at the time of the crime, he have someone that checked out. That never showed up. So now you have this dirty detective who told him he's been in the precinct for probably over 24 hours. Probably no drink. He didn't use the bathroom. Pretty sure they probably roughed him up and everything. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This detective told him, you sign this here and then you can get to go home. My dad, being a kid, he never been in trouble from the system, so he doesn't even know how it works.
So he never had a record or anything?
No.
Okay.
No. It's just first, so he signs it, and everything in the statement was coerced. They made it seem like my dad, gave these guys up, but if he gave a statement, he was never received a deal. If he gave a statement, why would he still go to trial to fight for his innocence? It just everything didn't make sense. So considering that, first of all, his alibi never showed up to trial, that is withholding evidence. Even my dad saying every day at trial, he would turn around and the lady, his next door neighbor, who he told him to go and ask, she would be there every day, hoping that she would get called to the stand. But not once was she called.
So she was called even by his attorney?
Nah, his attorney stated that he never got that piece of evidence.
Wow.
Yep. So it's so much other stuff, man. They put him in the lineup, and he was the only person in the lineup with the descriptions of what the witness gave. He was the only one in the lineup with that gear on, which is unconstitutional. You cannot do that. That's breaking someone's rights because now it's like if I say, okay, the person is tall, black, beard, and then you just put one black guy in the lineup and the rest of the guys is light skinned. You get what I'm saying? So it don't work, It's just sad, that my dad is just in the environment and he couldn't afford to get that lawyer to maybe fight extra for him. So they slap you on to a lawyer that maybe have thousands of other cases, and they're not gonna really fight for your life like how maybe a paid lawyer would, or maybe someone that have less cases would, because they're just trying to get over the hump. They're just trying to get their paycheck, maybe just like everyone else. And it's like it's crazy because they can deny it with no explanation. They can deny your appeals with no explanation. And it's like, appeal lawyers, how come no one found this evidence that we found? That his lawyer that's fighting for him for free as of right now. You get what I'm saying? He's fighting stuff that's wrong with it. How come the trial lawyer didn't find it? How come the appeal lawyers didn't find it? And it's crazy.
So he already had appeals?
Yeah, he had 3 appeals, and you get 3 of them in New York State, and after the 3, you're done. Okay. So yeah, the last one, he kind of jerked my great grandma's out of like 40, 50 grand. It probably was a whole retirement pension. She paid it. She wanted to see her grandson out of the prison. And she was the type that it didn't matter what it cost. She was gonna do her best to try to get him out. And some people see older women, and then he kind of like took advantage, and he didn't really do the work, because everything is right there, It's like all the wrong stuff all the before stuff is like there, proof in the pudding. And even till this day, the same lady that gave her alibi, she gave the same statement to his my father's lawyers 26 years later.
So
So
she's still living.
yeah, she's still living and she's still like, listen, whatever she has to do, she wants to, you get what I'm saying? Neighbors, she probably helped my grandmother raise him when my grandmother had to work. You get what I'm
Yeah,
saying? She
yeah.
know who the person that he was. She knows all along that my father never committed that crime.
And Bridget Daniels said that dirty detective even threatened his mom to take away her babies if she didn't allow them to search her house. So
Yep.
I guess
No warrant, no search warrant. That's
oh,
how he got in the house.
no search warrant.
Yep.
So the detectives searched. Was it the same night that the alleged crime
No, no.
happened? So this was like days later.
Think it was like, yeah, if it was I gotta get everything. I was young, but I
Yeah,
pretty no, it wasn't the same. Wasn't the same night, no.
with old men in crime clothes on, and nobody else had that jacket on but him. Okay, so
Yep.
they pretty much just said, put him in the lineup with somebody else.
Yeah, they put him in the line with the description of, like, they said it was army jackets, which was
Mhm.
all army jackets that they found in my dad's house was his jackets. Like I said, my father was well taken care of. Just
Yeah,
like I mentioned, my great grandmother spent 40, 50 grand to get him out of prison. He was well taken care of. My grandmother always had a job. He always had his own room. So he was well taken care of. There was no way my father was going to risk his freedom for $2,000. At the time, he's the only one with kids, so there's no way.
yeah.
And yeah, so
So, and we got about a minute and a half left. But so how is So you mentioned a little bit about him, but and we'll get in more into this on side of the break. But your father seems to be taking it well. From all I understand, like say he's never been about you mentioned him not being turned into the quote unquote typical prison guy,
yeah,
involved in all of the violence and things like that. Um, does he ever talk about how he maintains his sanity? Being
yeah. He says, you know, he knows deep down inside he would never, adapt to that because he know who the person that he really is. He know the person who he truly is, and even though he's been the door been shut on him for so long, trying to fight for his innocence, and the door's being shut on him for so long, he always said, I'm gonna still be what my grandmother and my mother raised me to be, what my father raised me to be.
all right.
And
So we do got a caller on the line. If the caller can stay on the line because we only got about 15 minutes, so stay on the line until we have to break because I definitely want to hear what you have to say.
yeah.
So just bear with us. We got 9 seconds, 8 seconds left. We'll be right back. 106.9 FM, the U-Turn Show, WBIS.
Hollywood Live.
Yeah, so we got a live caller. Hopefully that live caller will stay on the line for these next. What is this? What? Oh yeah, so we got about another 30, 45 seconds. But yeah, Mom Duke's up there. She chiming in.
Yeah. She was like the lawyer before we even had a lawyer. So
Yeah,
she knows the in and out of the cases.
and she was like, she probably was young. How old was she when it happened? Like she was like
My
what?
mom,
She was
my mom,
23.
yeah, she could have been. She's younger. She's about 2 years younger than my father, so she could have been about 21.
So
20.
she was a kid too. I know she
Yeah,
was like, what?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
man. We're kids, man. My
yeah.
sister, my oldest sister, she could have been about she was about, I think, 4 or 5. She remembers her and my older brother, they remember like my dad being out sort of
Okay.
bit with them. But not too much. Like, that's why, like, my sister, it hurts her a lot. It hurts
Okay.
her a lot because she
A little bit.
remembers him
Yeah.
outside, that she seen him outside, so it hurts her a lot.
Yeah, man. I can imagine. Yeah, she got a little taste. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
A little
yeah,
taste. So yeah, we got about 12 more seconds. So we won't. And we're back. 106.9 FM, Awesome Radio, WBISLP. This is the U-Turn Show. I'm your host, Richard Taylor. And yes, the caller stayed on the line. So I definitely want to thank you, caller, for tuning in the show. Let's hear it. Let's hear your voice. What do you have? Yes, caller, are you talking? Because I heard a little bit, but caller? Okay, well maybe it was a bad connection. But yeah, so if the caller, can you hear me? Are you still there? All right, so yeah, we're gonna move on with the show. But so you were talking about pretty much his attitude, throughout. So what was it, I guess when you uh started talking, okay, the caller hung up. When you started really having that communication as a young man, what was the catalyst, to lead you to start the brand, and have you been coming along with that? What kind of ups and downs have you experienced with that?
Yeah, so the main reason for me starting was, like I said, man, doors being closed on us, like seeming like, we came out with a New York Post article, seeming like, you're not getting that media coverage, you're not getting that attention. And it was just like a sort of like frustration. Like, at first I started with just like, let me just make a logo, explain my story, and I just sell the shirts by just explaining my story. And um, I didn't know anything about the business, So in the beginning, it was just a sort of like frustration, like no one is listening. Let me just put this out so someone can hear my story. And then, like I said, as I started to research and started to find out, you know, some of my friends, one of my friends was also, wrongfully convicted, which he had to take a plea deal because the system was so set up for him to force to take that plea deal.
Gotcha.
Um, so now where I'm at, my goal is to, eventually have my own flag store, where I'm currently at in Pennsylvania, have my store here, and you know, and then eventually start my own foundation where now, my dad will be home and now I can go back to my community and maybe help. I have little brothers that I saw be, was little kids, and I want to go back and maybe, tell them like, yo, you can do something different with your life. You don't have to worry about what everybody else is gonna think or what, your homies might think of you. It's your life, because my dad is in prison by himself. We're not there, his mother's not there, the homies are not there. He's there by himself. So at the end of the day, you can't worry about and can't focus on what everybody else is thinking and what everybody else got to say about you. It's your life, live it, you know.
So did you receive any flack? Because I heard you mention that you out in Pennsylvania now. Like, did you receive any flack, from your friends or the homies? Was like, you moving out there to the hills or the burbs or whatever, and
Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of them, like I have friends that, you know, since diapers, that some, you know, the love is still there, but I can tell that being that the route that I'm on, that the route that they on, they just don't maybe agree with it or they just can't get with it. But I was the one. I was once the kid. Like I was hanging around. Like I said, I found myself in some stuff, but I always knew like this wasn't right. Like this is
yeah,
you get what I'm saying. But I also worried about like I said, like what they were gonna say. Are they
yeah.
gonna look at me as the punk, or they gonna look at me as soft? But then I went to a funeral, and the pastor told everyone at the funeral that as men, pride was a sin. Pride is a sin. And as men, that was something that, a lot of us deal with. And, that funeral was 2014. I was at a funeral that my friend passed away and it stuck with me, you know. And then, me being away from it, being 23, and then, my this guy's I knew him since a pup, like since we was. He's like my cousin. His sister is my dad cousin, so we were like family. And I lost him. Someone killed him. His friend killed him, and I was away from it. I wasn't in Brooklyn. I wasn't going back and forth, leaving Pennsylvania and hanging out. I was totally, completely done with it, and that messed my mind up. Every night I couldn't sleep because I was thinking about him. Every night it was like dag, like I was changing to hopefully reaching back, and he was one of the people that I would have reached back, and I knew he would have changed because he was changing. He had a daughter, he was working, he was making that strive to change, and I knew
Yeah.
I could sit him down today and talk to him. He would change. He would change the way he would live. He would do things differently, because we had that connection, and I believe he would have listened, so that dealt with me a lot, and my big goal is just to never, like, I don't care who it is now. If I come across you, I'm going to tell you the real. I'm going to tell you what it is, because I
Yeah.
didn't get a chance to tell my cousin that.
And that's big. That's one thing you said. One thing that stuck with me when you said you was like, you know, you don't want to think, you don't want to think people to think that you a punk or you soft. But really, that's actually it takes more courage to walk away and do the right thing than rather to stand and blend in and do the right thing. Like you said, you knew those things wasn't for you. So, once again, like people don't understand, they think it's easy to do the right thing when your whole environment, your whole world, your whole, circumstances, your whole, even the influences,
Mm-hmm.
to cause you to do the right thing. But luckily, like you said, you had some guy uh, who was into certain things, but wouldn't allow you to get into certain things. And that's what I think is missing in these day and times. People like that guy, and also people like yourself,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to step in and be like, hey man, this is real. This is what's gonna happen. This is what it looks like. This is what 27 years look like. This is what it looks like without a father, that's been out there. This is what I'm going through. So, you don't want your child to go through that, man. So that's definitely a message, man, that needs to be heard, man. And I saw you actually advertising. Uh, and it's funny, like I knew you, but then I never we wasn't friends. I think we was friends on Instagram or whatever. But then I saw your ad on Facebook. So you're doing some Facebook advertisement with your brand and learning the different marketing techniques. Is that how was that process evolving for you?
Yeah, so I'm still in the learning process. I just graduated from the class, but I'm still in the learning process. But I also, that's just one of the things that helped me when I moved out of here and just got away from everything. It gave me the chance to, like, sit down and learn. I wasn't big on that. I didn't like school. I didn't like taking notes. I didn't like doing any of that stuff. But I realized, for me to change my life, for me to change my kids and to change my family lives, and change some of these brothers that that I still keep in contact with lives, I had to sit down and just study, read stuff, and open my mind. You know, and you know that aspect. I'm learning the marketing stuff, and eventually I want to be an expert. Eventually I will be the expert. That way
Definitely.
now I can train and I can teach, just some of my guys that make music. I can teach them how to, you can target and you can hit this person, you can add and you can do this, even like to this day I got guys that make music, and I tell them, yo, make a clothing brand. I make clothing too, but it don't hurt me to see someone else make a clothing brand, because
Yeah.
you get your feet in, I get my feet in. We all in together. We
Yeah.
can maybe go back to the block and now show we got a legit way to do this.
Yeah.
We can show you this is how you can get legit.
It's enough out there for all of us.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. They print money every day, man.
Yeah, people wear clothes every day too. So don't.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yep.
So look. So how long have you been out of the bricks, as they would call it, Brownsville, Brooklyn? How long
Yeah.
have
So
you been
I,
out
I say I started real young. So I was outside probably at the age of 9 years old before my mom started to go to church. I was outside running the streets, from
there?
9, I say, all the way up to, even when I moved out here 2015.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Like,
Yeah,
how long has it been since you
yeah.
moved out
Yeah,
of
I've
that?
been out here for 2014. I was 20, so I had a job at the Barclays, and me and the supervisor kind of got into it, and they started to mess with my work hours, and it was like, I'm out of here.
What was the situation?
It was like I felt like I always had like a baby face,
Uh,
so they had a meeting, and I felt he said like he thought I said something, and he got like you have some of these guys that's when I started to realize in the workplace, you have some people that maybe had been bullied or whatever, and they just had problems, that they just don't get a hold of, and he came at me like a wrong way, and I was everyone at the job can tell you like I was quiet. I come and do my work, and this was like the first time they ever seen me like explode. It was like, the hood Kyriek came out of me.
yeah, yeah,
I come to work. It was my first job. I'm trying to change, and it was like he threw me off. And ever since that, it was like the job was a tip based job. So if you had suites, you get your paycheck, but you also get tips. You may get tips at night, and you also get a percentage on your check at Fridays. So
okay,
every schedule now, they just scheduling me for the work for the kitchen, and then the kitchen close at 8. So when the kitchen close, I gotta go home. I don't get the
yeah,
suites. I don't get to handle the suites. So my check started to become low and lower. And my mom had rented the house out here, and she was like, "I got a job interview," which is my wife now. She said, "I got a job interview." She was the first one that took the step. She went out here. She did the first interview, took the second. She got the job. Man, we came down here. We ain't have nothing. No car. We didn't know how to get around. We didn't have no refrigerator. We didn't have anything. But I knew that I couldn't go back to the block.
yeah,
At that time I had maybe 4 friends that was
yeah,
gone,
yeah,
that killed. You know what I'm saying? And I knew like I can say this now as a man. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to
yeah,
go to jail. You get what I'm
yeah.
saying? And as
Amen.
a man, we have a problem with saying that, like
Definitely.
but me, I don't want to die. I don't want to die early. I know we all gotta go, but I just didn't want to go that way. I just didn't want to be sitting in prison and having to put my moms through that stress, having to put my wife through that stress. So I just knew like I couldn't go back. So if I had to ride that bike to work, I had to ride that bike to work.
Amen. And that's big right there. Don't let that pride get in your way, man. And people who think that just up and moving with nothing can't succeed. Here's living proof, man. Actually, I'm living proof. I moved to Virginia with nothing but a trash bag, and didn't know not one person, but I made it happen because I didn't want to die in the streets of Goldsboro, North Carolina. So I definitely want to. So once again, just big that up, man, because people don't understand that it can be done once you make that step. The whole world and everything is open to you. So I definitely want to commend you for that. And back to the job situation because I've experienced that a lot working in the corporate world where you have guys who have that Napoleon complex or that control freak
Mm-hmm.
and that or that once again that bully mentality where they've been bullied, so they're just going to bully. So how much freedom is it where you can work for yourself and you can you know write your own paycheck, you know what I'm saying, or write your own ticket, man. How give people what an idea what that feels like rather than coming to a job every day where people can control your paycheck and even your mindset when
Yeah.
when it's bothering you like that.
Yeah. So the best thing for me was, like just being able to like, wake up and have my kids and I didn't have to rush and get up and go and clock in. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
and then it was like, I never had a problem with, getting up and working. Like that was never my problem. But it just seemed like every job that I would go to, it was either I would run into some issues or they would just treat me wrong. You get what I'm saying? And I felt like that was just God telling me something like, I was bigger than this. My calling on my life is bigger than just clocking in and going to work. I have something that can, change my family's trajectory of their life, change my kids. I had something powerful. So like when I would work, like nothing will ever work out. I will be at a job maybe for a year or two, you know what I'm saying? But it would never
Yeah.
like, work out. And I just said, I said I made $500 less than 5 minutes last year, and it was like, wow, like you get what I'm saying. With
Yeah.
more dedication and hard work, this can be $5,000, and I realized, like, the money is never the problem. It's just the time that I feel like I can assess. My, like I said, my brother deals with life complications every day. I want to be able to give him the best doctors where now they not worrying about because his insurance is good, and oh, we just want to have him in the hospital because he gets everything and his bed pays for this and that. I want the doctor to put the best interest in him, whatever's going to help him push and help him, maybe get the chance to walk, and get the chance to talk, and and get the chance to have his own family. So that's was one of my big things. Like, it was never about the cars and the clothes and the big old house. It was just like, to make sure my family is good and me having that time.
What you can do with the money is more important than the money. So you definitely got to my man Edward Harris said,
Yeah.
pushing for purpose, and
Yep.
I like that. He always say pushing for purpose because we can have all the money in the world, but if we don't do the right thing with it, then we're just we're just stacking it away, man. And you mentioned one thing that once again just resonates with me is the time with your children, like not having to run off and rush because people don't understand. Children need that time. They need that guidance. They want that time. And, even when you come home from a job, like you said, if you have a stressful job situation, you find yourself sometimes being irritated with your kids
Mhm.
because, somebody at the job made you mad. So, and once again, Edward Harris said, yes, it's good to see your own clarity of your what ifs. So definitely, man, that's big, man, that for you to realize that the importance. And once again, man, you're 27, you got two children.
Yeah, two girls.
Two girls, okay, and girls are a whole nother different story.
Yeah,
So they soften you up quick, right?
yeah. They stuff me up real fast, man.
Yeah, they soften
Maybe
you.
just look at life different, man. Just being in the delivery room and just seeing, like, someone bring life, it just made me even respect women different. Because growing up in my community, it's just like, we don't value our black women. We don't value our women. Period. You get what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And that kind of opened my eyes too. Like wow, like women are special to actually do this. You get what I'm saying?
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think a man would be able to do this. We cry about the littlest things, man. We wouldn't be able to do that, man.
Yeah, yeah, that's big. Though. I was in the delivery room. My daughter was born too. I was amazed, and it just, what I mean. You get, and then sometimes it takes reminders, just like this, like
Mhm.
yo, yeah, like women are special.
Yeah,
You
man. Yeah.
know, they are very special, man. Sometimes we take them for granted, because of whatever society devalues women.
Mhm.
This European society, whatever they want to call it, the society of seizure, as I heard one theologian puts it, kind of devalues women. So sometimes we buy into that unknowingly. But I definitely, man, I'm just thinking about that. So big up to all my women's, my mothers, my fathers, my mothers, my sisters, my all of y'all who bring life, man. I'm up here actually with Kansas City, and I was talking to my cousin. She has about 11 kids, and her kids have about 5 or 6 kids apiece, and it's just a blessing to see the family aspect, that I'm witnessing and witnessing with you, you know what I'm saying, as well, man. So I definitely want to commend you. We got about a minute left, man. Tell people where they can find you at, where they can get your merchandise, how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at CEO Kai. That's CEO Kai with three Y's. You can also follow my business page, Injustice Brand. Just straight Injustice Brand with two D's at the end. Also, my Facebook page is the same thing, Injustice Brand. You can find my store at injusticebrand.store. I have products up there. I have my dad article. You can also read more in depth into that. Also, before I leave, this is for Hakeem Gravenheist. This is for Nathaniel Walcott. This is for Nathaniel Gravenheist. This is for Gary Thompson. This is for Dwayne Williams. This is for Keon Gravenheist. This is for Thomas Costello. All my brothers that I lost in the streets. Before I started this journey, um, this is for y'all. This is for me to continue to keep y'all name right. Not in the wrong way. I wanted to be able to show people that y'all helped me during this journey of my life
Hold
too.
on. Wait a minute. We gonna keep going, but we'll see y'all next week on the U-Turn show. But we're gonna stay live on Facebook.
Lord, I need you to smile on me. Lord, I'm pleading.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. What you were
Yeah.
saying?
So those are my brothers. It's mainly for my brothers Nathaniel, Hakeem, Keon, Thomas, and Nathaniel again. Those are all my brothers that lives got cut shortly to senseless gun violence. And they were the spark of also changing my life, and also, me saying that I never wanted to see their mothers crying at a funeral again. Because that stuff hurted me. And you don't get a redo on life. So, if I can help maybe they little cousins, or maybe they kids, or they, not turn that way, that's what I'm doing it for. It's for my dad, but it's also for them, because their lives were cut short. They didn't get a chance to change, so I'm big on that. And
So
that's what
you went to all those funerals?
yeah, I went to all of them. I didn't go to the previous one, which was a young man named Keon. I didn't go to his funeral, but his life also cut shortly, and was a very, very, very loyal to man. He was a post office. He worked for the post office, and his just life just cut shortly, just off of senseless violence, and you know, his mom can't get him back, man. So I always told myself like I can't be a part of this thing anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah, I actually been and I mean at the age of 16, you got to think about it. You going to funerals. That wasn't normal. In the
Yeah.
community we looked at it as normal, but it wasn't normal.
That's
You
not normal like that. Like people don't understand. Like we really need like counseling.
know?
Like stuff like that. Like that's post traumatic stress syndrome. Seeing your friends get cut short, like being with somebody one day and the next day, what? You're
Yeah.
not gonna be here no more, and you expect to just move on. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
You just expect to go to class and do your work, and you
Yeah.
know so people don't understand the trauma that comes with the street living and being in those type of environments where, and like you said, even in your own mindset, like, look, I don't want to die. You know what I mean? I could die tomorrow. I could die. Let me get out of here. So you actually gotta actually flee for your life, like you're like a refugee in Syria or somewhere.
Yep.
Um, um, Man, like yo, man, this is my man Edward said this is an edifying show. We can take this listening, teaching, broadcast, and apply it to our inner self with faith. Definitely, man. Because once again, you definitely inspire me, man. I told you this like after our graduation, it was like it was 6 week Zoom course or call where we each of us told our stories, man. I told this brother, man, after his story, man, and after everything that I really him talking about himself and his children and the things he got going on, man. I was like, yo, I'm impressed. Like, he 27. I would love to be married, with 2 kids. I would have loved to got married at 27, man. I just see, man, like this is not the last you're gonna hear of this brother because you know what I'm saying. He definitely got a purpose. He got his head on straight, and he just pushing, man. He got the right perspective, man. So I definitely want to commend you once again, for like the umpteenth time, but also pray for much success, man, and that God will open up numerous doors for you, man, wherever you go, and that He will put you in the room with people, man, that you will not even imagine, man. And actually, once again for your father, man, pray that his journey with that system will end, soon, sooner than we think, man. And that his story and testimony will continue to inspire others and continue to inspire others in there as well. As you told me, like the position, and sometimes you, like you mentioned, hey, sometimes we don't know why, but God know why He put them in that position. To help other brothers. You know what I'm saying? Help. Maybe sometimes guys come in there with short time, and He's able to touch them. To change their trajectory. So, man, it's just a pleasure, man. Anything else you want to say, man, before we go? I know you were saying make sure you want to say get everything out.
Yeah, that's all, man. Like I said, just one more time for my brothers, man. My brothers, Papa, AC, Thomas, and Keon, man. You know, this is for y'all. This is for my dad. This is for my great grandmoms. This is for my great grandfather. this is for y'all. This is for my mother. This is for my kids. This is for my wife. I'm not going to stop until, you know what I'm saying. I got a group of young brothers that started their own business. You get what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and the reason why I helped them and got them out that that aspect of life, and just that's all I got, man. You can find me again on CEO Kai. That's my main page. You can also follow my business page, which is Injustice Brand. I also want to thank you guys for allowing me to be up here and sharing my story. Thank you again, once again, bro. I
Yeah.
truly appreciate it, man.
Man.
Because this, like I said, man, this stuff right here. If you tell me 10 years, even 3 years ago, I would never see myself doing these things, man. But I know I got a calling on my life, and I know there's something special that I have to do in my life. So I got to keep pushing. Whether I lose money, whether I lose packages, whether I lose customers, I got to keep pushing because it's something bigger, man. It's a movement, not a clothing brand, So
Yeah. Yeah, so I definitely, man, I look forward to, man, because like I said, I look forward to, because there's so many stories out there. Your father's not the only one, man, so I look forward to, getting some type of, collaboration or movement together so we can, touch brothers all around, the world. Have some kind of system set up, where, what I mean, something that can block this, man, because it happens all the time, and I'm out every day, and people, oh yeah,
yes.
you was wrongly accused. My brother going through that right now. My cousin
Mm-hmm.
going through that. My brothers. So with
Mm-hmm.
so many stories from all around the world, the nation, man. So we got to be mindful and careful. So I want to thank you for doing your part, man, and bringing this matter to life. And we definitely looking forward, man, to great things to come. And I'm gonna keep up with you, bro.
All right, man. Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. And thank you all for listening, tuning in, all of my Facebook listeners, all of our radio listeners. We definitely appreciate you here at Awesome Radio, the U-Turn Show. We thank God for you. And join us next week when I have my brother, once again, Edward Harris, pushing for purpose, doing God's business. Definitely going to be a great show. Thank y'all for tuning in. Kyriek, I'm going to holler at you, bro.
All right, man.